Well, hello, listeners, and welcome back to the Purposeful Marketing Podcast. Aaron, Mary, James, and Kevin is here, all four of us. I'm very excited for this episode because when you hear it, it's going to be our 50th episode of this podcast run. And we brought Kevin on because he's not only a friend, but an amazing performance marketer. I love his insight and input. The topic today is one that we're going to talk about, and everyone's been talking about it, but I think we have some updates since our last conversation, and that is AI. I'm going to be intentionally vague and broad there, but I think generally the question is, again, should we care? And we're going to tackle it a bunch of different ways. And what I want to start with is originally how this conversation came about. And if Kevin, you can just lay the groundwork real quick, is you went to a conference about a month or two ago. It was the AdWorld conference, and everybody was talking about this in marketing again. So if you can just kind of summarize, give us your feel about what those conversations were about. We'll kind of use that as our launch pad to take this a bunch of different ways.
Absolutely. So my takeaway from AdWorld, of course, everyone was talking about it, but it felt sort of like talk about the internet in like 1994, right? We're extremely early. We know AI is going to disrupt much of what we do. It's going to disrupt everybody's everyday life. But to use it in that way today in 2023, I think is a little like short-sighted. And we definitely need to be learning how we can use it eventually and sort of learning the language and learning prompts for ChatGPT and how do you prompt Midjourney and all of these things so that we have the tools that we're capable to take full advantage of it. But I don't think we can get into this as well. Like, is it prepared from a tech standpoint? Are we prepared from an ethical standpoint? Are those questions answered? How does it actually operate today? So that's kind of my takeaway is it's going to be huge. We need to know about it, but I'm not looking to cut out half of my workflow just with AI right now.
Yeah, thank you for setting the groundwork there, Kevin. We do want to start off the top, and James, I'm just going to throw it over to you so you can start, and then I can massage it. But essentially, we do have one blanket statement we want to make about AI. So, James, I'm going to give you the floor.
Wait, what's the blanket statement we want to make? I mean, I think that Kevin mentioned that there are ethical questions. I think if you think that the ethical questions are going to be answered before you're asked to start using AI for a bunch of stuff and before AI starts to like really permeate the industry, you're kidding yourself. And I just think like it's almost like not, is it worth talking about? Yes. Like I don't feel qualified to talk about it. And I don't think anyone should be like explaining ethics to anyone else on a podcast, but I would like, it is something that I think it's worthwhile for everyone to look deeply into how different companies produce their data, how they manage the data, how they test the data, how they develop, reports on what is bad, like what is not safe, how they get people to actually look at that. Everyone's probably heard the stories about YouTube doing that, basically just sending massive amounts of totally not healthy or safe videos to people to watch for almost no money. Like that kind of thing. It's worth everyone looking into that on their own and determining how they feel about that so that when the time comes for you to not just tinker with AI and learn about it, but actually use it, that you're capable of making decisions that align with your values is really all I would have to say about that.
Yeah, that's perfect, James, because I think I love that you walked us through that because what is important and why I want people to listen to this show is I want you to look inward. when we say purposeful marketing, it's we want to ask questions about things and not just accept the truth of marketing, right? Like, don't just do lead gen, don't just use AI. Like, really ask what's best for you and the customer in those relationships. And through that questioning, we become better marketers. And again, that's the dialogue we've been having on this show, as different themes and different questions. But this is a very big question. That's why we're doing it on the 50th episode. And I want us to continue that dialogue after you hit pause on this show as you're listening to it. So that was our statement. We didn't want to make it. This is not an ethics episode, but I do want to kind of talk through some maybe updates, maybe how our thinking has changed. Before Mary, I'm going to pass it to you in a second here. So one, we'll ask Kevin more questions about AdWorld and kind of what other marketers we're talking about. Two, I've been using AI tools in my workflow a lot more. So I just have a lot more hands-on experience to talk about it, maybe how I'm using it in the right way. And then three, this is where I want to bring Mary in. As you moved into a different role and you're head of marketing, you may be evaluating AI within your overall marketing strategy. So that's kind of where I want to start is, have your thoughts changed? Have you started to think about this? Is this a distraction? You can really take us wherever you want to, Mary.
Yeah. At this point, the only thing I would be using AI for is to like simplify mundane tasks. A good example of that would be we use otter.ai. I don't know if this is true AI, but it just produces a transcript from a recording. So just instant transcript, upload that transcript into something like ChatGPT and have it summarize the episode for you for show notes. I mean, that's just like one really easy way and like specific way to think about it. As far as if we're evaluating AI on a broader scale, hell no, because I am a one person marketing team at this point in time. I am basically building a product marketing function from the ground up. I just don't have the time to think about it. So if I did, and when we eventually get to the point of implementing some kind of AI solution, number one, I'd want to make sure we were doing it the right way. And number two, I would want to make sure it's prioritized correctly because I feel like I was just at a conference with people, business leaders, salespeople in the automotive aftermarket, and there's just like certain really basic workflows that people aren't even doing. Like they're not even managing their data well. Like their data is living in Google Sheets and Excel spreadsheets. Like all of the data that they own. So it's like at some point, I just want to be like, am I even just making sure basic workflows are operational at our company before we start going like full blown AI? So as far as priority, it is incredibly low. My ears are to the ground. I'm listening to people talk about it. But as far as implementing it, it's like basically zero.
I think that's great grounding for this episode because as marketers hear the conversation and they listen to this, there's so much pressure of like, I should be adopting this right now. But what resonated with me the most with your talking is comment I've made before is just because you have tools doesn't mean you're a carpenter. Just because you have AI doesn't mean you're doing the right thing, right? So that's where we need to continue to have dialogue. And from a strategy standpoint and building out a function, it's like maybe it's not best, right? Maybe I actually need to build these from the ground up so people understand that why to my product marketing function first. Now, Kevin, we just talked a little bit about the strategy. Now, I know at AdWorld, you're probably hearing like, you can use this for execution. You can use this for ad platforms. You were probably getting the dog and pony show of AI there. So you want to kind of just fill us in maybe on some insights or just really special things you saw there?
Yeah. So one tool that's really cool is addcreative.ai. And it does, I mean, it's making things specifically for like a single image ad on Facebook or LinkedIn, instead of putting things together on like asking ChatGPT to write copy and then have Midjourney do a design and then you got to put it all like you can. It's all in one. Like it's doing headlines, creative, all of those things. Again, it's like I can't endorse it for using it now for creative that you're going to launch and ship. But it's definitely something to tinker around with and get used to, and maybe can help you generate ideas that you, the human, can make. So that was a really cool tool that I was introduced to. But it really got me thinking too about like AI or really content itself, it's gonna commoditize some elements of content. Meaning, with content marketing, like the way it stood before AI, it was whoever has the most capacity to make the most content might win, right? Like it's not always like it needs to be quality, but like if you can put out a lot of volume, that's going to get you pretty far. With like paid media, it was about having the biggest budget in many cases. You could win in that regard. I think when AI is like at full scale and it's being used by everyone, it will be more about the actual creative idea, because there will be so much stuff out there being created all the time that unless you can, again, as a human, have an input that's going to pump out a creative idea, whether that be an actual creative asset or that being like performance marketing, like paid media, like optimizations that are creative as well. So that was kind of my big takeaway.
Yeah, that's great. And James, in a second, I'm going to pass the mic to you. But essentially, what we talked about last time we did AI, and this is perfect, you talked about, Kevin, is like we talked about content. That was the lens of where we really had the discussion. And what we felt is kind of what you explained is like, if anything, there's just going to be more content than ever, but the quality is going to sacrifice. And James correctly pointed out, it's like what you're going to see is like just more formulaic content. And they're going to be like, maybe I should stop doing that. So I think, and I'm going to ask you this, James, I think what AI could do is maybe free up our time so we can do things like more customer interviews. Like you need quality content, you have more time to talk to your customers and formulate that content. Like, is that a future that you can get down with, James?
I really don't know. I think that I hear like this type of tone in conversations where it's like, okay, well, what if we have AI do the stuff that's like not as important? Um, like what if AI posts on the company's LinkedIn? And it's like, well, is it important or not? If it's not important, why even bother? Like at this point, like why use bad AI to do it when like it just seems like if it's at this point, if you accept that the platform is not good at the job, that it's good at doing a job, but like it doesn't do a good job, um, then like it starts to become really hard for you to be like, yeah, but we can let it do this thing because this thing doesn't really matter. It's like, well, how about you just focus on the things that do matter? Like that's a way to free up your time. You could free up your time by anything that you're willing to let AI do now. Just don't can do it. Like you obviously don't care about it. Everyone's got the same amount of time in their day. There are CEOs who would like you to believe otherwise. But you have just as much time in your day as they do. You might have even more kids than they do. You might have even more friends than they do. You might be getting more texts than they are. It's about like, what do you care about? Like, what do you want to spend your time doing? I don't think that AI necessarily changes that for me. I think that maybe a good thing for marketers, especially teams of one, is kind of the converse of this idea. I get the feeling that people are going to ask for things from you and they're going to say something like, well, it should be pretty simple with AI. You should be able to do this with AI, to which someone who cares deeply about their job will think, you think that that's what this is? Like, you think that that's what I'm doing? You think that I clock in and I do that thing? You think I do predictive text for my job? Like, that's like belittling. But what you should say is, you know what? That's a good idea. You should use AI to do that. I can do things that require skill. So that's kind of, if it's going to free up time for me, it's mostly at this point going to be because it allows other people to do things that they currently ask me to do that aren't important to me. But I think like it's far from being able to do anything well enough that like anything that's that low on the importance totem pole that I would let AI do it, I'd be better off not doing it at all.
I love your perspective as always. Mary, looks like you're gonna chime in there. Yeah.
Can I jump in, Aaron? Because I have like a really good question because I think we're like hitting on a point. Maybe I haven't like fully come to the realization yet because I completely agree with you, James. But I do want to get to the point, selfishly as like, let's say a marketer, right? I do want to get to the point where I like type in to some like AI system, build me a workflow that routes this form to this person, that form to that person, and it's launched in what 10 seconds, the 10 seconds it took me to type that. Because right now I have to go in and manually build a workflow in HubSpot. I have to test it and make sure it's working correctly. There goes an hour of my day. And like I said before, I'm like a team of one trying to build this marketing function from the ground up. That's a lot of time, like very precious time out of my day. So like I completely agree with you, James. If you're having AI write your marketing emails or your social media posts, like just forget it. So like what's that definition? Because I feel like we're reaching something. I just can't put it into words.
I think that Kevin would maybe be the best person to talk to this, but I think all of the talk about people being so excited about this generative text AI and predictive text AI and all this excitement about like, oh my God, it can start doing this stuff. And like, I never paid much attention to like, or care to learn how to write really well. So this is really useful for me. Like, is distracting from the fact that like, this is going to be really incredible when it starts to be in every platform that we use. And like, I'm thinking about like, well, if some integrations are challenging, is there AI that can like speak the languages of these platforms and do the dirty work of like a workflow for a marketing person who's in a bunch of different platforms hosted by a bunch of different people? Like I that's the type of thing that I don't have a lot of understanding of, and I'm trying to catch up on because I feel like it'll be, for me, that's like where I would then become very valuable is if some of that stuff that I don't understand became easily understandable through AI. So I'm curious about that kind of thing as well.
I think that's a great point, James. I think all of the talk of like AI taking jobs and whatever, like I don't really know. I've never been at a company where I feel like any of the tasks that AI can currently do or even on the horizon can do would actually replace an entire person. It would definitely make, like to Mary's point, it would definitely make some things a lot easier, right? Like there are still a lot of manual things, buttons we have to press on the back end that just take time. It's literally just time. Once you know how to do it one time, if you could automate it to do it the same way over and over, oh my God, it would save us so much more time. And we would be so much better at the actual strategic part, at least on a performance marketing side, right, Aaron? Like we could actually think about why is this ad doing better than this one rather than like recording data or like connecting apps together, integrating CRMs.
Yeah, I think I'll take it from there because I kind of agree, and I think something we talked about, a theme that's in the ether here, is like focus. What has happened is there's just so much software saturation that we're spending so much time being like, how do I sync this CRM to this piece of software? To me, that is not marketing, right? And that's why we talk about it. Essentially, what AI could do is maybe free you up to do more of the marketing activities that matter. But I think it can't do, because I do, James, your passion that you share is what I share too. And like this idea that I keep seeing that we'll just have better content, we'll just have better creative. Like quality is time agnostic, right? it doesn't matter how much you save time on copy or creative. There's this quality baked in it that we almost can't even explain sometimes, right? But by doing the work, and that's what's super important, is we need to do the work. We don't just come in and do generative text and we have copy. We do customer interviews. We sit and think about the idea. We have revisions. We have feedback. Like, that is doing the work. That is the process. If you take that away, well, you take content away, right? We can do it for design too. I worked at a creative agency. Great designers, they're not in front of the computer all day, right? They're like watching a YouTube video, they take a walk, they have a bite of a burger, they come back, now they're designing logos. This just idea that I almost think about it too much too. It's like, if I just save time, like everything will be better, but maybe that's not the crux of it. Just to take us, we've talked about some good things. I do want to give some very actionable, tactical things that I've been doing with AI to make our jobs easier. Kevin and I did a performance marketing episode that will come out, and we talked about how AI could help certain aspects of performance marketing. In general, what I think AI can help with is some of those time-consuming activities that to me are not super marketing focused. So I'll give you one, which is creating a written scope of work and also a written standard procedure. So most of the time, how I've been doing it, and I think this is a great use of time, using AI to save time, is recording myself talking like this. Then I use that transcript to put it in ChatGPT, export it, ask it to reformat for a standard operating procedure. Great. I saved all that documented time, which I know is super important to my business as a whole, but it's not really marketing time. And that's what the time I really want to save and I keep doing more of. So just any thoughts on that from the group? Just, I have other execution things I'm doing, but just want to pause there.
Yeah, I've found that it can be helpful too with even setting budgets for paid search or social, and the inputs that you put in can have zero like information about clients or anything that they do. You just say like, this is the audience size, this is my target CPM or cost per click or whatever, and like basically these are the campaign goals, and it can bring back like an estimated budget, and it's usually pretty darn accurate to what I would come up with as well. So if I don't feel like doing a few levels of math in the moment, I can just have ChatGPT help with that.
I think that's great, Kevin. I have not tried that, and I'm going to try to do that now as we get asked that question a lot as performance marketers. I think another one Mary already brought up is like transcriptions for your podcast or webinar. Again, it allows you to do other things. Like, Mary's the head of marketing. I know she needs to do other things. And I think that's the time that we're saving. Let's see. Just to kind of wrap us up here, because I think we've exhausted the AI thing a little bit, is, I think these are the important questions to ask, and we keep going, we keep asking, we keep talking about them. I think as a marketer, this is not the thing that's going to make you a great marketer. It's all those other things we've talked about, right? Throughout each episode run, is getting a little bit better at content, question, customer interviews, strategy, measurement, data. It is very hard to be a marketer, but that is why we are here. And that's why we love it so much, right? So all of us, all four of us, Aaron, Mary, James, and Kevin, DM us, ask us questions. I say this all the time, and we literally do it. But we're all here together, and I want to keep having these conversations. We'll keep Purposeful Marketing Podcasts running and have some great dialogue. So this is available on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, wherever you can find it. You can listen to it. We are taking guests. Best way is to LinkedIn, DM me, Mary, James, Kevin. That's how we funnel you through the show. I always appreciate feedback. Started putting our email within the podcast episodes. You can give it to us. And besides that, have a good one, listeners. Appreciate you.
Peace.